Hey, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us here in the Illinois channel. We're joined again by Jeff Berkowitz. We're going to be taking a look, kind of giving an overview of some of the issues and some of the candidates who are going to be running in the Republican gubernatorial primary that'll be taking place just about 11 months from now, Jeff. And Jeff, let me just turn it to you over briefly. You in Chicago, what is your quick take?
Quick take is the campaign's getting going. We're about 11 months away from the primary in March of 2022, the Republican primary. And Senator Darren Bailey has already entered the race. Former Senator Paul Schimpf was the first to get into the race. And Gary Rabine, businessman from the northern suburbs of Chicago, or north of Chicago, is now in the race as well. Richard Porter is still thinking about it, says he'll decide late spring or summer. That's where we are. There's also some hint that Congressman Rodney Davis may get into the race. We can raise that a little bit later. What are they doing? The candidates are going around the state. They're addressing crowds. They're going to events. They're focusing on the issues. They're getting their momentum. They're getting.
Well, we'll see about momentum. I think a lot of people don't even know the names of the candidates, much less what they're running on, which is why we're doing the show. We want to introduce not only some of the candidates, and we've done that over the last number of weeks, but some of the issues. One of those who might run is Richard Porter, a lawyer in the Chicago area. You interviewed him recently. He laid out an attack on the current status quo of government in Illinois. Let's take a listen.
Illinois has gone from being a functioning republic to being a state which operates to serve itself and the people who are in the government itself. We've developed what you can think of as a predatory government. It is pursuing ends and policies for its own end, not to make life better here. And people see that. Nobody wants to live under a government where the objective is to shake you down for more money to pay for whatever it is that they want to do, including their ability to retire.
What do you do?
So you could say to the federal government, hey, along with that $30 billion, I want you to authorize me to make changes to my pension plans. And the federal government can do that. It has a source of power in the Commerce Clause, they could do it under the Bankruptcy Clause, and they could do it under Article 4, which is the guarantee of a Republican form of government. It's the federal government's obligation.
What do you think, Jeff?
Richard Porter, possible candidate in the Republican primary, has a philosophy. He understands the way in which government has been going now for a long time in Illinois. He wants to reverse that. He doesn't want a predatory government that seeks to make government work for the state employees, for the state politicians. He wants it to work for the people. He sees no way out in terms of the pension mess we're in. He's looking, at that time, January 19th, when we taped the show, he was talking about negotiating with Democrats who he thought might need and want some help. And what did he want? He wanted the power to cut pension benefits. He says Illinois government doesn't have that power. They should, because Illinois government needs to run the government for the people of Illinois, the citizens. That's his model. That's the opposite of a predatory government.
And Jeff, talking about predatory government, this is an example we're going to go to here. We recorded a portion of the Senate Pension Committee hearing. And to put this in context, the Illinois Senate was looking at a bill that would, the city of Chicago is currently paying to their pensions for fire and police, and they're making the amount of payment that they're supposed to make under the law, but that's not enough. The fireman's fund, pension fund, is going broke on the fast track. And so the Pension Committee hearing was listening to a testimony on a bill that would require the city to make substantially larger payments to the pension fund. Let's listen to a portion of that where Senator DeWitt, a Republican, was asking Patrick Hall, who was testifying on behalf of the city, about this and about where the money would come from.
Talking about a roughly $804 million increase over the next 3 years in our contributions. That's on top of the numbers that you cited, Senator DeWitt, $576 million in contribution year 2022.
And how would the city make up that difference?
I think the only lever we have to raise that much funding would be a property tax increase, which is part of why this is a complicated issue due to roughly $1.7 billion in lost revenue during the pandemic. And so I think largely from our perspective, this is a timing issue and lack of viable revenue streams to solve this.
So, Jeff, there you go. That's Patrick Hall talking about the need to increase property taxes as if they weren't high enough, as if citizens of Illinois haven't been fleeing the state for years. And this is kind of, I think, what Richard Porter was talking about in that earlier clip, predatory government. They just keep going to the well and taking more and more money out of the private sector to feed what is helpful to those who work at government jobs. And I think the citizens of Illinois are pretty sick of it. And this, I think, in the context of the Republican primary, whoever that nominee is going to be one of the primary issues, because there is just a rebellion brewing, I think, in the citizenry of Illinois. And you are having I think, just a real fight between those in the government sector and those in the private sector. And here, to put this even in context in lieu of where we are with COVID and opening up the economy, we've had how many businesses closed down? How many restaurants closed down because they couldn't hang on?
Thousands.
And now we want to increase the property taxes on this? I mean, you know, at what point? Apparently there is just no point where raising taxes isn't going to be the answer for virtually every issue that the Democrats are going to be running on.
No, and this problem, it's easy for people to say Democrats or Republicans, they want to cut property taxes, they want to slow the growth, but they have to start doing that. And the way they do that, property taxes are set at the local level. It's where the rubber hits the road. So the city of Chicago, when it sees that it's being forced by the Illinois legislature to increase firefighter pension benefits, a fund that's funded at about 18%, they're going in the wrong direction. They should be cutting pension benefits. If they're not allowed by the Constitution to do that, then they got to do an amendment of the Constitution. And for the moment, don't make things worse. What they did in that legislation that was recently signed by the governor, and that's why it was in the news, legislation was passed previously, was their firefighters who were younger than 54 did not get a 3% per annum compounded growth of their pension levels after they'd been retired, which is what people over 54, firefighters over 54, were still getting. They adjusted it so all firefighters would get 3%. Inflation's not going up at 3%. Why are we compounding this problem? Even Mayor Lori Lightfoot, no right-winger, was against the governor signing this legislation, but he went ahead and signed it anyway. And that's what you saw, the testimony of Mr. Hall talking about, well, if we're going to if we're raising these pension benefits and our costs are going up in the city of Chicago, how do? We have to raise property taxes.
You know, I'm going to go back about 30 years. A lot of people
are.
lambast Jim Edgar, but I've interviewed Jim Edgar a number of times over the years, and he was a two-term governor, for those who don't remember. In his first term, when he came in, the state of Illinois was in a massive fiscal problem. Governor Edgar became known as Governor No during his first 4 years, because every time they wanted to spend more money, his answer was no. At the end of his 8 years, the state of Illinois had a budget surplus of something like $1.5 billion. And I bring this up because right now I would say Governor Pritzker could be referred to as Governor Yes. Is there anything he ever says no to when it comes to spending more money? We keep digging year after year, deeper and deeper and deeper into the hole. And the only thing keeping this state from total bankruptcy of late is that you have Joe Biden, who's president, yes, and you know, for him $1 trillion isn't a big deal, because they keep spending $1 trillion bill after another. And Jeff, how much money are we getting from the federal government that's going to be helping to save Illinois from being sold off in the courthouse steps?
That's a good place to turn to. We're getting about $25 billion over the course of the next 2.5 years. $25 billion. So we got to look at, when I say we, the state of Illinois is getting that, the cities across the state are getting that, some entities that deal with transit are getting that, the public schools across the state are getting that. So we got to break that down. But when you add it all up, it's 20 to $25 billion. And what we should be talking about, but I don't hear I hear Wirepunch, which is a think tank based here in the northern part of Chicago, but they're looking at this and they've tabulated how this money is coming in and who will have control over it and so forth. And maybe, but nobody's really, and I think the candidates may start talking about this, the Republican candidates, what should we do with that? If the state of Illinois, the governor should be talking about this, if they have $7 billion coming in from the feds to be spent at their discretion, largely at their discretion over the next 2.5 years, they can't put it by law into pensions. They can't put it into cutting taxes, but money is fungible.
Right.
Putting all that aside, here's some of the candidates might start talking about this, that $7 billion, this is the state of Illinois borrowed $3 billion from the Federal Reserve. Maybe you repay that. The state of Illinois has, at least $4 or $5 billion in bills, outstanding bills that are owed to vendors.
Well, let's not go
Maybe
too
they
deep
should
here.
use that money to pay for that.
You just mentioned the state of Illinois borrowed from the Federal Reserve. I believe they were the only state to do that. And why? Because our credit rating is so bad that they're not, the banks are saying, no, go away. We're not going to give you a loan. You interviewed a number of the announced candidates. You also interviewed, again, Richard Porter. We got a bite here that pertains to this exact comment. Let's listen to what he had to say on this issue.
Illinois today, and I've been doing some polling to see where people are. Is it a majority or a near majority of Illinoisans consider themselves conservative, and like 15% less consider themselves liberal? So you have a lot of people, and yet the Democratic Party is 17% higher in party affiliation. So you have a belief system which is out of whack from the partisan system. What we need to do is give people who agree with us a reason and permission and the ability to vote for us, right? We have to present them a face and an alternative that works for them so they'll actually vote to support the ideas they already believe in. I mean, at the end of the day, we're supposed to be reflecting ideas of the people. I think our ideas are there. That's why the governor lost that tax fight. 55% of the people voted against it because they saw that Illinois was in a spiral, and the only way to break out of the spiral is to stop the tax and tax and tax. So we've got to cut taxes, and if we cut taxes, we've got to cut liabilities. And that's the only way we're going to make Illinois a better place for people to live.
Richard Porter is a partner at Kirkland & Ellis. He's been on the RNC, Republican National Committee, for 8 years. He's been involved in state politics. He's been involved in campaigns. He knows the issues. He's got a model. He's ready to discuss these issues if he does get into the campaign. And as you can see there, he's saying he's done some polling, not to tell him what to say. He wants to see if the views that he believes in are consistent with what Republicans, independents, and moderate Democrats want. And what he's seeing is it is. A lot of people, he says, identify themselves, the majority, he says, of Illinois, identify themselves as conservatives. And yet they line up with the Republican Party on voting. So he says what Republicans need to do is give people who are prone to vote for Republicans a thoughtful, articulate reason to do so. Gary Rabine is out there now. He is a candidate, and he's, as I mentioned earlier, he told me he's going across the state. He's going to Rockford. He's going to LaSalle County. He's going to all these places. What is he saying? I said, what are the issues you're focusing on? He said, Jeff, we're focusing on job creation. We're focusing on cutting property taxes. We're focusing on serving families. The nice thing about that, that's consistent with the model that Richard Porter is articulating, which is give people a reason to vote for you. Tell them about what if they're concerned about those things, what are you going to do? And is it doable? Do you have a model to get it done? And I said to Rabine this morning, I said, well, if you're going to cut property taxes, how do you do that? It's done at the local level. You don't do that as governor. He said, well, you know, Jeff, we have a $400 billion pension liability. We got to do, and those pensions come from the state, they come from city governments. We got to allow these folks to cut those pension benefits. I said, do you mean you have to amend the Constitution? Yes, that's probably the only way we have to go.
You know, but
So-
let's go back to the comment from Richard Porter in the clip. Richard Porter was saying that the federal government could mandate, hey, we'll give you money, but the deal is you're going to have to change your pensions. And Porter was saying that could be done under the Constitution of the United States, which is preeminent, so that maybe you wouldn't have to change the Illinois Constitution. You could do it through federal action. Just to keep that in mind. I mean, that was an interesting, I thought one of the most interesting takes by Porter on the situation with pensions. And Porter said, as we heard in the comment, that he was talking to senators on Capitol Hill, including Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Porter, again, a member of the Republican National Committee, and so he is well known on Capitol Hill in Republican circles. Now, that said, nothing's going to happen at the federal level, I would say, as long as Joe Biden is the president. So at the very least, that's 4 years away before you could make a change.
That's a tough
And that's even if a Richard Porter or any of these Republicans, even if we had a Republican elected in 2024, they take office in 2025, you know, that's just not going to be a viable option for a number of years. But it's a possibility just to throw out there.
Right. It's another possibility to amending the Constitution. Porter thinks that would be difficult. This might be easier. The main thing is to let the voters know, as you're campaigning in this Republican primary, you understand the primary fiscal and social issues, and I mean the new social issues, which we'll get to in a few minutes, but the primary fiscal issues. You understand something has to be done about pensions. We talked just last week about the salaries that teachers across the state of, the pensions that teachers across the state of Illinois are getting. Averaging career teachers are starting at a pension of $80K a year. Social Security people are getting $18K a year. That's out of sync. Something has to be done about that. So people who are running the Republican candidates for governor have to be addressing pensions when they're discussing these issues. Property taxes. They have to be addressing public safety. They have to be addressing education. They have to be addressing jobs. I mean, you have to know, is Illinois losing jobs? What do you do to get jobs? You know, COVID may be over, or as we're taping this show in April, maybe we're approaching the end of COVID, because maybe we're having enough people vaccinated and enough people already have in Illinois that then had COVID, so they have antibodies build up. Maybe we're approaching herd immunity. Maybe we're approaching opening up Illinois, but we're not opened up as Texas is, as Florida is. We need to be talking about that. The candidates need to be very specific as to whether Illinois can now open up safely. And once that happens, what else do you do to make Illinois a destination state?
As we talk about these issues, as we talk about the testimony in the Senate Pension Committee about increasing property taxes to pay for fire and police in Chicago, and when we talk about the private sector people getting $15,000, $18,000 a year from Social Security, that's what they get for retirement. These are the payouts. Now, if I get, Jeff, $18,000 a year, or let's say, you know, for 10 years, that's $180,000 between the time I get Social Security and I would die, $180,000. And you look in this far column here from Wire Points, the total amount of payout, $2.6 million, $2.1 million, $1.8 million. I mean, the private sector, the taxpayers, are getting nothing like the amount of money that's coming from the public sector pensions. And all of that money, you know, the public workers say, well, I paid into that. You did, but these benefits are not based on the amount of money that you paid in. It's the amount of money the taxpayers are on the hook for. So we're taking money away from people, one, who in their retirement are only making $18,000, to give it to people who are making $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 in their retirement. And those people who are making more get 3% a year automatic increases. Social Security people aren't getting automatic increases of 3%. And when you add that all up, this is where we have people fleeing the state of Illinois, because we are, they're just saying, hey, the same reason people fled Europe before to come to America. They're saying that the future in Illinois is not in the interest of my future. And so people are voting with their feet, going to Tennessee, going to Texas, going to Florida. And they're not going, as the governor sometimes suggests, they're not going there for the weather. They're going there because these are low tax states. They are low regulatory states where they can have a future. Their family can have a future, and they can grow their businesses.
So yes, and you just mentioned 3 states, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, that have a 0 income tax. Illinois had a proposal to raise the income tax earlier last year, and that was defeated, late last year, and that was defeated. But getting back to the issue of money coming in, really what Illinois needs is reform. They're getting this inflow of money. If they're getting it, fine. And they need to get reforms done at the same time. And so the cities are getting $6.5 billion, cities across and villages across the state of Illinois. Now's the time for them to reduce their debt, increase their reserves, cut spending, get ready to deal with issues going forward. The schools across the state of Illinois are getting $7 billion from the feds from that stimulus program. And so that's in addition to what they might be otherwise getting from the state. If the state can, they should look for what they can do to get their balance sheet in order, their fiscal health in order. So don't talk about spending more in education when you have the schools across the state of Illinois getting $7 billion. In fact, what you need to talk about is giving school choice, because there are schools that are not performing well. There are kids their schools are failing them and teaching them how to read, write, and get ready for the skills that they need to compete in a modern economy.
Governor Rauner had a scholarship fund.
Right.
Had a scholarship fund. It was modest compared to the billions we put into public education. And even that, the Governor Pritzker has wanted to close down because the Democratic Party is, in Illinois at least, it just seems to be totally against school choice of any sort. I would think that this would be a primary issue within the Republican Party, because the people that are most hurt, it seems to me, those students, those families that are stuck in failing schools. And predominantly, you want to talk about people of color, those are the people who are hurt by having their children stuck in schools that are failing. And when we look across the state at where we have education not really being competitive as far as test scores, it is in those areas like in East St. Louis, like the South Side Chicago, these areas with large populations of Black or Hispanic people. It's not the Wilmettes of the world where the schools are failing. Those are good public schools. But school choice, it seems to me, would be the kind of thing that maybe one of these Republican candidates would want to champion.
Right, and we've heard from them on that. I would say they're all in favor of school choice. That is the 3 candidates who are running: Rabine, Paul Schimpf, Darren Bailey, Senator Bailey, and Richard Porter if he gets in. All of them favor school choice. They should be talking about it. And also it ties in with how the governor handled COVID, and how if he didn't cause it, he certainly seemed to encourage or allow schools to close to in-person learning across the state. Many of the minorities were the people hurt most for a variety of reasons by going to remote learning as opposed to in-person learning. So that is still an issue here. And closing down the state of Illinois hurt on jobs, to lockdown, or opening too slowly. So that is still an issue. but also an issue, turning to the social issues briefly, as you know, Terry, you and I discussed, and many others across the state of Illinois, discussed these cultural education standards. What did they do? According to Paul Schimpf, he said, look, what does O mean to you, Jeff? He said, O to me means opportunity. But what does it mean to the people who were pushing these cultural education standards? There was a way of painting whites as being oppressors and painting blacks as being oppressed. This whole idea of systemic racism, look, we're all for equal opportunity. We're all for banning discrimination and enforcing that. But do we want to teach our kids that they are oppressed or oppressors? Do we want to teach our kids that Illinois and the country is a systemically racist country and state? These are the new social issues that are arising. People want to hear this discussed. They want to see what's going on in their schools. And as you point out, they may want some school choice. They may want the ability to control their education more than they currently can. That's the most direct way to do it. Give them the funds. In the state of Chicago, we spend $21,000 per kid per year on these kids. That's a fair chunk of money. What could they do if they could take the $21,000 and go to the charter school or private voucher school?
And how many of those for $21,000 a year over the course of that student's career, how many of those kids, A, fail to graduate, B, even if they get a high school degree, they're still functionally illiterate? I mean, we see that. This, you know, this is, we say that we have such a graduation rate, but I think the dirty little secret is that a lot of kids, even with high school degrees, are not qualified for many jobs. And so we're either raising people that are not qualified to function in increasingly a digital economy, a high-tech economy. And so what's the future? Where are you going to be employing these people who may be functionally illiterate in many cases when we have technology replacing what were before manual labor jobs, the kind of jobs that these people might have had in the past? I mean, these are just the issues that people are not talking about that I think we really need to be addressing.
Well, and we need the data, and the data are available. People should know what the high school graduation rates are. They should know that maybe we keep hearing, I've heard this for 20 years, and I don't think it's changed, that in many of the inner city schools in Illinois, in particular at CPS, only about 30% of the minority kids read at grade level. 70% do not. They need to hear about that. They need to understand why it's not getting fixed. That's what they should be hearing about, not new cultural education standards. And you know, that ties in with an issue that's very timely that people are hearing about. That's Adam Toledo. That's this 13-year-old kid. People downstate may not know, but in the southwest side of Chicago, 13-year-old was out on the streets at 2 a.m. in the morning with a 21-year-old guy who shot, apparently, it's alleged, pulled off 8 shots and handed the gun to Adam Toledo. Adam Toledo was then seen by a policeman, not the guy who had the gun did the shooting. The policeman gave chase. All he could see, he obviously didn't know the age. What he could see, he thought this was a kid who had a gun in his right hand, was turning to shoot him. He shot in what he thought was self-defense. Turns out, all those facts will be determined by the appropriate legal and judicial, perhaps, investigation. But my point to you,
I was going to say, we got 40 seconds here, so let's...
Yeah, how does that tie in with this? It's, again, a values thing, because it's alleged that Adam Toledo was not well served by his CPS school. He was special ed kid. He wasn't getting the attention he needed.
The mayor of Chicago said we failed Adam. I would say the system is failing a whole lot of Adams, a whole lot of kids. We're allowing them to fail in schools, and we're acting as if all schools are created equal, and they're not, or that they're all performing equal, and they don't. Jeff, this is a much more complicated issue, which we're not going to have the time for, but let's just say at least we scratched the surface on this. As always, thanks, and we will keep you informed, folks, as we go along. Jeff, until next time, we'll say goodbye.